Hey everyone, it's James. It's August of 2021 and I'm almost 8 years on testosterone now. I wanted to make a video about the hysterectomy that I got last year and the process leading up to it as well as the recovery. It was a lot of information, so I wrote it down and I'd love to read it to you now. It's taken me a while to process my experience with hysterectomy enough to share the details with you all. Honestly, it took a lot out of me and I needed to focus on recovery. I have the capacity now to share this part of my transition, and I'd like to talk about the timeline of surgery approval, recovery, and hormone changes. I've wanted a hysterectomy since starting T, but I had to financially prioritize hormones and top surgery. Eventually, the need for hysterectomy became more urgent, and I reached out to my doctor for advice. In late 2019, I saw my doctor to talk about bleeding that had returned after years of being mostly gone. Despite being on T, I would sometimes have cycles, and the dysphoria was devastating to me. In addition to that, I had struggled with needle anxiety the entire time on self-injections. There were also side effects of the T I was sick of dealing with. In the past, when I briefly tried topical T-gel, I was happy with the results, but it caused my cycle to return. I hoped getting a hysterectomy would give me the option of T-gel again as a long-term plan for hormones. My doctor agreed that hysterectomy would help alleviate these issues. She recommended a surgeon, Dr. Linda Mahaliv in Seattle, who frequently treats trans patients. The hospital had a financial aid program for low-income patients, and she showed me where to apply. I qualified based on income, but still had hoops to jump through before surgery would be approved. I had to provide a recommendation letter from my doctor as well as 2 separate mental health professionals. The surgery would be billed as transgender bottom surgery, so I had to go through the familiar process of getting letters for medical treatment. The cost out of pocket would otherwise be $45,000. I ended up having 2 cycles that winter, and my mental health went from bad to worse. After that, a difficult event took place in my life and the depression symptoms became critical. My psychiatrist told me about TMS, which is used for treatment-resistant depression. To qualify, you must first try 3 different medications and go to therapy for your symptoms. If the depression remains acute, TMS is an option for patients. By that time, I had tried probably twice that many medications and done years of therapy. Thankfully, the treatment was approved by insurance and they paid most of the $14,000 cost. If you're not familiar with TMS, it stands for Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation, and it is used to activate nerve cells in the brain. The machine directs pulses at the frontal lobe, an area closely linked to depression. The treatment has a high success rate in studies for treating depression and thoughts of suicide. It felt like depression had robbed me of so much of my life, and I desperately wanted to survive and move forward. Even with meds and therapy, I still felt like I couldn't get a footing on my symptoms. I went for treatments 5 days a week for 7 weeks in the spring of 2020. The pulses were sometimes painful to my scalp, but I had no other side effects after the 20-minute sessions. Within a few days, I felt hopeful for the future again. Within a couple weeks, I had more energy and could engage in therapy more productively. I had less urge to self-harm and eventually stopped entirely. The thoughts of suicide became less frequent and less intense. There was still an enormous amount of stress in my life, but having a break in the cloud of depression gave me a chance to take the steps I needed. I told myself I'd never forget what I went through and committed to build a life I enjoy, not just tolerate. During that time, I had my surgery consultation with Dr. Mahaliv, who helped answer questions about hysterectomy. I learned I would need an ultrasound to see if the bleeding was caused by other internal issues. The results of that exam came back normal, and I could continue planning for surgery. Based on my symptoms and no desire for pregnancy, she recommended a total laparoscopic hysterectomy. This removes the ovaries, uterus, cervix, and fallopian tubes, and leaves 5 small incisions across the belly. She recommended 4 weeks off work for recovery, and I could not do any heavy lifting for 6 weeks. I could be back to walking within a day or 2 though, and I was encouraged to do so to help with the healing. Despite my excitement for surgery, my psychiatrist wanted to wait until the end of TMS treatment before writing the letter of recommendation. Even after it was finished, though, she still withheld the letter. She made me write a detailed document about the benefits and risks of hysterectomy. She was worried about her liability if I had mental health complications following surgery. I don't think she ever understood the meaning of gender-affirming surgery as something to help my mental health, not make it worse. When my psychiatrist finally did send me her letter, I forwarded it to the hospital as well as my insurance. I've since found a new psychiatrist who has made a huge positive impact on my life. She put me on medications that work better for me and gave me a roadmap for processing trauma from the past. I had also recently found a new therapist who was entirely supportive as well. He clearly understood why I needed a hysterectomy and sent me his letter right away. I was finally scheduled for surgery at the end of June and was COVID tested 3 days before. On the day of surgery, my best friend drove me and supported me at the hospital. I was in a lot of pain when I first woke up and I was unable to urinate. The nurse said this issue is common and is caused by irritation from the catheter in surgery. It got better over time, but progress took months and I had to limit any activity that wouldn't have restroom access. I had to extend my work medical leave an extra 2 weeks because of this. The abdominal pain and bloating in the days following surgery were difficult, but pain medication helped. It was hard for me to sleep on my back, and I struggled with insomnia for weeks. I had hot flashes and chills for months, which was inconvenient and irritating. It was also tough to not be able to lift anything heavy for about 6 weeks. Weightlifting is something that makes me happy and helps relieve stress, so I really missed it during that time. Even after I was allowed to lift again, I still didn't return to the gym due to COVID risk, and I had to use other coping tools to make up for it. I'm grateful to have supportive friends I could text or call during that time for encouragement and distraction. It helped me feel less alone in an otherwise isolating experience of recovery during quarantine. Switching to gel was another main goal for surgery. It had many benefits such as steady daily levels, less acne, less irritability, and painless application. My doctor said I could switch immediately after surgery, and I did. It was a big relief to not have to deal with needles and the side effects of injections anymore. However, as the months passed, I noticed I had less energy, lower mood, and a change in fat distribution. The shape of my hips, thighs, and chest changed, which was really discouraging. Because I'd been out of the gym for months, I knew my body had changed just from inactivity. I returned to the gym this past April after being fully vaccinated. Even after months of weightlifting, though, I could still see those changes and concluded it was in fact gel-related. I went back on injections about a month ago, and my fat distribution is more masculine again. I also have more energy to do basic but important things in my life. My therapist recommended icing the injection site before the shot, and that has really helped with the pain. In my experience, there are unfortunate side effects to both types of tea I've tried. For now, I'm choosing injections and working on myself to manage the challenges that come with that. Everything regarding hysterectomy, mental health, and hormone changes has been difficult for me to talk about with anyone, let alone share publicly. Talking about top surgery felt easier and had more tangible results. I felt more excited afterwards because the change was drastic and it was so affirming of how I've always pictured myself. Hysterectomy, on the other hand, wasn't a visible change aside from 5 small scars on my torso. The changes have been more personal and are harder to show in pictures or video. When I see others share about their mental health or gender-affirming care, it means a lot to me and makes me feel less alone. The medical world lags in transliteracy, so we often find ourselves being our own researchers and advocates. My transition has felt like an experiment of sorts, and these are my results so far. Like they say, the only difference between screwing around and science is writing it down. Thank you for listening, thank you for the support, and I send love and well wishes to you all.